the centrifugal pumps became a more of a thing for us. And our real specialty nowadays is high pressure, multi-stage centrifugal pumps. And we still do the recips, but the centrifugal pumps are, the mathematics and the physics are a little more exotic, a little more engineering involved. So you can leverage your expertise maybe a little better,
Right.
a little less competition. Although we have some wonderful competitors out there, but I mean, I say that one day they're your competitor, next day they're your supplier, and the next day they're your customer. So good people in the industry. So we, as time has gone on, we do a lot more with centrifugal pumps, and especially the high pressure stuff, which involves high speeds, multi-stage, and there's the engineering gets a little more exotic.
Are those used a lot now in the fracking sector, or is it a completely different type of pump? Like what are they using now? As fracking grows so much.
Yeah, fracking, because it's done typically at very high pressures, they'll typically use a positive displacement quintuplex pump. That's the standard nowadays.
It goes back to that. Yeah. Okay.
However, the frac water supply is done with centrifugal a lot of time. You got to move the water to the pumping site, and then there are places where, like in Wyoming, in the coal bed methane, they don't need such high pressures, and they need higher yet volumes. So there they'll use a centrifugal sometimes.
Okay.
And then if you're moving water up the water's always down below, right? And the wells are drilled up high a lot of times.
Yeah.
So you got to get that water from down below way up high, and so we've rented pumps to people that had to lift it, 2,000 feet to get the water to where the frac site is.
Right.
And in the one thing we deal a lot with the energy industry, oil industry, but in the oil industry and gas industry, you want the oil and gas. What you end up dealing with is water. And so we sell a lot more water pumps than oil pumps, and we sell them too. Pipelines are a good market for us, but a lot of times it's water. Water, you use water for drilling, use water for fracking, use water for servicing, and then you end up with water being produced with the oil, with the gas. You got to dispose of it or move it around. A lot of water pumped in the oil fields.
That makes sense.
So would you say, is there a percentage? Do you think 80% of the pumps you're selling, what would be the number to water to actual oil pumps?
Yeah, likely 80-20.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and
fast.
like in some oil fields, the water, and I mean, there are some oil fields, they're lucky, they get almost 100% oil. But typically, you're dealing with a water cut somewhere between maybe 20% to some fields are 97% water. So you're getting a nice little bit of oil, but you got a lot of water to deal with. And sometimes you got a zone that'll take that water on gravity. You just pour it in a well, and then the gravity will push it into the formation. But a lot of areas, your zones are operating at a higher pressure than that, and you got to push it there. And so then you need a pump, and sometimes a very, very large one.
Yeah, so this is something I've actually wondered about your company, and just over the time I just haven't really got a chance to ask. Is this, because I know you do the engineering. Now, are you engineering off of their specifications? And I'm sure this answer changes depending on the company. Or are they sending you what exactly they need, and then you're building the pumps off those specs? Or are you actually saying, this is what you're trying to accomplish, so we're going to build what you need?
Well, okay, my favorite customer is the guy that calls me up and says, hey, I need to move some water. And, okay, how much? What are you doing? How far are you pushing it? What do you got to achieve? And then we design a system to make them work. Now, I have engineers that can and actually do read through 80 pages of specs, okay? If there's 80 pages of specs, then I give it to them. And, I mean, I got a guy that I think actually enjoys that. I'm not sure, but
He tells you he does.
but a lot of like the smaller type companies, they don't have an engineer on staff, but they got a knowledgeable guy that knows what he wants to do.
Right.
And so he might not be a pump expert, but he's an expert at what he does. So then we provide the expertise on pumping and how to get it there.
Right.
So you're actually designing the system.
Yeah.
They're giving you a goal. You're designing the entire system.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
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 And then sometimes it's very prescribed. But I mean, like, okay, if a customer really they have their own engineering on staff, or they're using a outside engineering group and this and that, and in many cases those projects are planned years in advance and this and that, and they go to Sulzer or Flowserve or one of the big outfits, and we never hear about them. But sometimes they need something in a hurry. I mean, they don't have a year to wait. So then they call us and we get involved. And the problem is, if you get very, very, very specific about exactly what you want, then our 1,500 pumps in stock aren't enough. We'd need 20,000. But
Right.
But a lot of times we'll have almost exactly the right pump for them. But if you get really specific about bearing type and a bunch of specs, we may not have exactly that. But if you simply want to move water from here to there, and we'll have a pump for you. If you specify that it's got to be stainless, we might probably have a pump for you yet. But if you specify that you want a certain type of bearing and a certain this and that, then we may, as the specs get a little closer, and then sometime we go and buy a new one, and we modify too. But a lot of our customers, we do the pump selection, we do the engineering, we get them a system that works.
Right. Is that so? How many of your customers, when you start, they're building an oil field? So how many of them? How much of your business? You mentioned that the now I forgot the Ajax.
Yeah, Ajax engines. Yeah, I love them things.
Are they allowed to be used in a lot of areas still?
No. No, the Clean Air Act kind of wiped them out a little bit. I mean, there's areas, and overseas maybe, but it's getting a little tougher. I mean, nowadays, really electric is the right way to go. But, But hey, they don't make that
Is that happening
popping noise
on the pump side as well? With the pumps, they're going electric power?
A lot
for
of
the most part.
Yeah. But, I mean, or you get a Tier 4 engine and drive it with diesel or natural gas.
Right.
So what I was going to ask is these. You said that he stopped buying, he switched to a different. So you had to sort of switch your product offering because you were selling a lot of those pumps to him. You said it's one of your suppliers.
You're talking about one of my customers that was buying Ajax engines?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So how much of your business is once a customer realizes, okay, you can adjust the specifications to get what I need to do, but I don't have as much of a lead time. I'm sure if it's used, there's a price. There's
a bit of a price advantage at times.
Price advantage. How much of your business then is built off of, okay, now I need another one. Now I need another one. Or is it a lot of restart with a new customer and referral for your business?
Well, we sure love them repeat customers, and we get quite a few. But like some of this stuff is built for it's not built for to use for a week or 3 months or whatever. A lot of it is very long-term stuff, and they aren't buying one every year in some cases. So, in some cases we'll sell something to a customer, and we maybe hear from him 3-5 years down the road. Then now he needs another one. Okay.
Yeah.
But we a lot of our business is repeat, but we're always looking for the new one too, because they're I don't know. It seems like there is you need the new ones to come along to make it happen.
Yeah, I noticed with from my a little bit of background with electrical that you'll run into situations where the electrical has been updated over the last 10 years, but someone is still working within an older system, and so they need very specific types of electrical that can then be inserted into that system without having to replace the entire thing, which
Yeah.
would cost millions. Do you run into that with pumping systems, or is it not?
Oh yeah.
Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, all the time. Yep.
Yeah.
Older fields would have like the older
Well,
equipment styles.
like okay, so you know you had a 500 horsepower pump and your whole system is 480 volt, which works for you know for that maybe, but now you're going to a 3,000 horsepower system and now you need a 4160 volt system. So in some cases you end up selling them a transformer and helping them design the whole variable frequency drive VFD system, switch gear, everything has to be upgraded, right? Because just everything's bigger. But and yeah, then there's sometimes that means longer lead times and this and that. But we can a lot of times we have suppliers for that sort of thing, so we can get her done quick that way too.
Yeah. What do you think is the main? Is it the cost savings or is it lead times? Do you think is the main driver for new customers, or is it pretty much is it split?
Well, a lot of times it's actually lead time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when we rebuild a pump, we actually end up with a lot more hours in that pump.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because you are engineering things.
Well, yeah, and like to take something apart and clean everything up and make it pretty and nice again, that's time consuming, okay?
Yeah.
So like when they build that thing new in the factory, they don't have to take it apart and they don't have to clean things up. It already is, right?
Yeah.
And they put it through their CNC machines and like it's fast and efficient and they end up with not very many hours in it actually in the final assembly. Yeah, there's a lot of hours go into it before that. But so when we take and there's like we find that small pumps, it's not worth it anymore. Like you don't try and rebuild a pump that you can buy new for $10,000. It's not worth it.
Right.
But you know, a pump that's worth $250,000 new, yeah, we can save them some money. And we do. But the real big attraction is if you got an oil field coming on and you're going to be producing oil in 2 months, and you're waiting a year for a pump to pump the stuff. Well, in that 10 months of time, you can pay for that pump many, many times over.
Right. Yeah.
So the issue is to get it there and get it there on time, and or, you know, I mean, you go into mining too. I mean, your mine is flooding.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what? Well, that I know you do a lot primarily in the energy sector, but you do move into mining as well. Is that where you get a lot of the mining work? Is where I guess the dewatering and projects like that is where your company would really come in, right?
Yeah, mine dewatering is good for us. Yeah, but I mean, there's boiler feed pumps in food plants, in petrochemical plants. There's just high pressure process pumps in refineries and this and that. They're just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, I talk about high pressure because that's a little bit of a specialty, but we have many pumps for all kinds of processes, and so refineries, mining, food processing, all kinds of process industries, steel mills.
Right.
Steel mills have been good for us.
Interesting.
They use these high pressure pumps for descaling. You get this mass of red hot steel coming through, and it goes through the roller, and then there's scale on top of it. So they shoot high pressure water at it.
Oh,
And we rebuilt a pump for a guy in Serbia, an outfit in Serbia that their pump was down and it had a major crash and they needed one in a hurry, so they sent it over to us and we rebuilt it.
oh,
Sent
they
it
actually
back.
sent that pump to you for
Yeah.
you to refurbish.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, what kind of lead time would that be?
that was about. I think that one was about. It was likely 15 weeks or so.
That's pretty quick.
Still not, yeah.
Yeah.
That's with shipping and everything. It was.
I think so. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The shipping probably added something to that.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
What was it gonna? That there was something it's a personal favorite topic of mine. Is the rebuilt refurbished debate
Oh, sure.
that happened
Yes, thank you for asking this question.
in the used industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it get fairly heated before.
Yeah.
Because there is a different view. Well, what is considered rebuilt? What's considered refurbished? What's considered reconditioned?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had that
What-
discussion.
What's your take on this?
We've had that discussion, and one guy thinks that refurbished is a higher grade than rebuilt, and the next guy thinks exactly the opposite. So I don't know as I actually have answers.
Yeah.
I do know that, like, I mean, the industry is a bit, how might one say, a bit tarnished maybe, but by paint job overhauls, Sherwin-Williams overhaul. We use Sherwin-Williams. It's good stuff, but but you gotta go a little further than that, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know the right word to use because the words mean different things to different people. But the bottom line is, if it's done right, you get right down to the if it's done right, really the only difference between new and rebuilt is that you started out with molecules that were already solid instead of liquid. In your steel.
Right.
You didn't start with molten steel. You started with something that's there, but that was already in a shape. But I mean, at the same time, there are situations where, where some of our stuff you can't get it to that place. Well, then you don't
Right.
try and sell it as a 0-hour rebuild. Because we kind of like to use a standard. What would I want if I was the customer?
Right.
And now I know what's inside this thing. And would I be happy if I was the customer knowing what's inside there?
Yeah.
That's the standard.
Well, if we could go then so if you're doing a rebuild,
Yeah.
that's what is on, maybe let's go with the most common type of pump that you sell. On that pump, what is being done to it on I'll say a full rebuild, that this is going to be up to full specifications, like you said, a 0-hour rebuild. What's actually going into rebuilding that pump?
Well, take it completely apart, clean the parts right down to clean and spiffy like they're new.
Yeah.
Do a full inspection. Sometimes you end up having to remachine the split line. New casing rings, new wear rings. It's basically what, like you say, in a centrifugal pump, and a lot in a recip also. It's the surfaces that's what's worn. Okay,
Right.
It's the basic underlying body of the thing is fine.
Yeah.
It'll never be affected, but the surfaces are eroded or corroded or damaged in some way. You have to bring those surfaces back to their original condition, and when you do that, it's in no way inferior to a new pump.
Right.
Now, and I don't want to, like, there are some advances, in the pumping industry, material selection and some of the like the cooling and the bearing arrangements and that sort of thing. But actually overall pumping technology, actually how you create pressure with a positive displacement or a centrifugal system, I mean, that essentially hasn't changed in 60 years. It's the technology is the same. So if you have a pump that's even as old as I am, you get that thing back to its original condition, and it'll work just as well as a brand new one.
Yeah.
But okay, then there is such a thing as a thing being corroded, for instance, and you
Right.
can't quite get there. Well, then you don't try. But a lot of times that's actually rare. Most of the
Right.
time we can bring something back to its original condition, and it works like new, and it's good for many years.
Well, one of the things that I wonder is if you, I know from working with you and doing due diligence of sort of how you're perceived in the industry, and Power Zone's a very respected brand. How do you uh, how do you outline that for the customer that you've delivered, that you've went in and done all those, and you haven't just done a paint job? Because once you close it back up, it is. So, and I know, and I asked this question because I know that there are steps that you take to do that.
Yeah.
So how are you, especially to a new customer that's, they've maybe done a little bit of due diligence, but you're a fairly new customer to them. How do you show to them that we have done all this work? What is it? I mean, it can't just be brand. You must have a steps that you take through your engineering and that to show that we've done all these steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do a pretty extensive pictorial record of the rebuild.
Yeah.
And we love customer inspections. I mean, come bring it on. Come and see us. We love it. They usually leave more impressed than what they come.
Yeah.
But then we do a full rebuild report, both a detailed, with all the numbers and clearances and stuff like that written in there, and then a little bit of a glossy just to show them, with the pictorial record of how it came in and what was done, and how it,
That's a good.
leaves.
That's a progress. The pictorial progress. That's a good way to do it for customers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's limits to that.
Yeah.
If you set out to hide flaws, then you could probably still hide flaws.
Right.
But we also have a vested interest in making sure that it'll actually work.
Right. Yeah. But you do all the documentation and even the pictorials, though.
Yeah.
So that's how a customer, even if they're
Typically.
new. Yeah.
Yeah, typically we do.
Really good for overseas customers as well if they're not actually able to
Yeah.
come over and inspect.
Well, how many customers take advantage of, come on and see us? How many do you get? A lot of customers that'll actually, I mean, some of these projects are quite expensive, so I don't know how much the pumping is a cost in comparison to everything else. How many customers actually will come on to site?
Well, on the big expensive jobs, we probably actually meet in person with 80% of them.
Oh, is it that high?
Most of them will.
Okay.
Most of them will send a rep sooner or later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might not be before the order, but during the process.
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah. That was my next question. Are they're coming mid-process to sort of get a feel for what you're doing? And
A lot of times.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we like it. That's the best way.
Yeah. Well, it's a big question in the industry is how do you trust, you go to an auction site and the wheel loader rolls off from one truck onto yours. What are you getting?
Yeah.
And
It is what it is.
it is what it is. Yeah. So, but
We buy that way,
yeah,
Good way to buy.
they don't let you take it apart first.
And sometimes you're disappointed.
Yeah.
Most people are honest though. I mean, we buy a lot of
Yeah.
stuff over the phone, and most people will treat you right. There's a few that'll hook you, but you don't want to lose faith in humanity right away.
Right.
Oh.
And I guess you kind of over the years you kind of start to filter out who to
Yeah, we do.
who to avoid. Yeah. It's as large as the industry is in dollars wise. It's actually a very small community once it starts to break down.
You're right.
Yeah.